Carried.
This is a bill entitled, An Act to Amend the Health Protection and Promotion Act with respect to the positions of Chief Medical Officer of Health and Associate Chief Medical Officer of Health and related matters. First reading of the bill, Premier Lecture, du projet de loi.
Would the member for Nickel Belt like to briefly explain her bill?
Thank you, Speaker. The bill amends the Health Promotion and Protection Act to make the Chief Medical Officer of Health an officer of the Assembly. It also specified the manner in which the Chief Medical Officer of Health may be appointed or removed from office. The Act also amends to provide for the appointment of a select committee in the event of a declaration of an emergency under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act that relates to a public health event or a pandemic or may have health impacts anywhere in Ontario. The mandate of the select committee consists of receiving advice from and providing advice to the Chief Medical Officer of Health with respect to the situation that gave rise to the declaration of emergency.
Bills. Statements by the Ministry. Minister of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today, I'm pleased to rise as Ontario's Minister of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development to extend an apology that is long overdue on behalf of all the members of the legislature and the people of Ontario. It has been more than 40 years since McIntyre powder has been used in Ontario mines, but for the thousands of miners who are exposed to the powder, it might as well have been yesterday. They were told by their employers that this powder would help protect them from lung disease and that they had to inhale it to continue working in the mines. These 25,000 miners across Northern Ontario didn't have a choice. For them, their livelihoods depended on taking this powder, and it was supposed to keep them safe. Instead, this powder caused the very things it was supposed to prevent. The survivors have had to deal with the lingering effects, lung disease, and Parkinson's, while countless families have had to watch their loved ones suffer, helpless to do anything in relief. Today, Mr. Speaker, there are more than 30 people here who've traveled from right across Northern Ontario. Family and friends who have had to watch their fathers, brothers, and sons live this hell, including 6 miners here who experienced this themselves. I also want to recognize miners like Isidore Commando, David St. George, and thousands of others who didn't live to see this day. And Janice Martel, who I'm glad to have met and had the opportunity to listen to. Janice is the daughter of Elliott Lake miner Jim Hobbs. Jim passed in 2017 after a 16-year battle with Parkinson's. Janice, I don't need to have met him to know how proud he would be of the fight that you've taken up. Speaker, I also want to recognize my colleague across the floor, the member for Sudbury. His unwavering commitment to his constituents and miners across Northern Ontario helped bring us to this day. I also too want to thank our government House Leader, the MPP for Markham-Stouffville, for his assistance and for his staff's help as well. Today's apology is the next step in actions to support our miners. I'm proud to say earlier this year, the Premier and our government declared Parkinson's disease to be an occupational disease that is a result of work-related exposure to McIntyre powder. As a result, miners who are exposed to McIntyre powder and have been diagnosed with Parkinson's are entitled to compensation without having to produce any evidence that their disease is work-related. For the miners and families here today, this means not only faster compensation, but equally as important, recognition that what businesses demanded these workers to do was wrong. Speaker, I am proud that our government also funded the research that led us to this momentous occasion. And today is just a start. Our government will continue to make investments to help identify and recognize occupational illnesses and support those who have been injured by exposure on the job. Because anyone in Ontario who falls ill because of their job should have the confidence that they and their loved ones will be taken care of. That is why our government launched the first ever review of our province's occupational illness system to deliver lasting change for workers and their families. This review is being led by an independent research center at St. Michael's Hospital with unparalleled expertise in studying complex health issues. Their work will lead to improved recognition of workplace diseases, a better understanding of the exposures that led to them, and most importantly, more days like today. While we know that an apology will not bring your loved ones back, it will not ease the pain and sadness so many of you have faced. This tragedy should not have happened to you. It should not have happened to your loved ones. And to each and every one of you, on behalf of the people of Ontario, we are truly sorry. Today, Mr. Speaker, I ask my colleagues to stand with me to honor and remember the victims of this tragedy. Thank you.
Statements by the ministry. Responses. I recognize the member for Sudbury.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Before I begin, Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity for the guests to use the Speaker's gallery. There were a couple of the members who had mobility issues, but they all wanted to stand together, so I'm very thankful to you and your office for opening the entire gallery to them. Speaker, today is November 30th, an important day in Ontario mining. 79 years ago today, despite expert evidence recommending against its use at the time, the Ontario government of the day sanctioned the first use of McIntyre aluminum powder for the use on Ontario mine workers. During the 36 years that it was used, more than 25,000 Ontario mine workers, primarily in uranium and gold mines, were forced to breathe the finely ground aluminum dust known as McIntyre powder. Before the start of each and every shift, the doors of the mining change room were sealed shut, the ventilation would be turned off, and a mist of fine aluminum dust was pumped inside. The dust would make the air turn black, and locked into the room, the workers were told to breathe deeply so the dust would coat their lungs, so the dust would protect them. And if the workers refused, Speaker, they were fired. I want to share the voice of two of these workers. During a press conference we held, Ed Graham said, "I put old shirt rags over my face to avoid the aluminum dust, but a supervisor caught me, told me to take the rag off my face. I asked the supervisor about the aluminum dust and I was told, if you keep asking questions like that, you won't be here very long." Bill Ferguson also said, "At the start of each shift, they would line our lungs with aluminum dust before we went underground. The theory was that the silica and rock dust wouldn't stick to your lungs and you'd cough up the aluminum at the end of your shift, but that didn't work. And they sprayed me with that for 18 years. For 36 years, Speaker, mine workers like Ed and Bill, they were told that breathing aluminum powder would protect them from harm, but instead many miners experienced immediate and long-term health effects. That simply wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to the 25,000 Ontario mine workers who were forced to breathe McIntyre aluminum powder. It wasn't fair to their loved ones, to their wives, to their children, to their fathers, their mothers, their friends, and their fishing buddies. It simply wasn't fair. And so today we are here united as members of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, 79 years after the first use of McIntyre aluminum powder, 36 years after its final use. And we're here to tell you that we are sorry. Nous sommes désolés.
We're sorry. The use of McIntyre powder was sanctioned by the government of Ontario. It was not fair for the 25,000 Ontario miners. It was not fair for their friends, for their family. We are sorry.
We're sorry that between 1943 and 1979, more than 25,000 Ontario mine workers were forced to breathe McIntyre aluminum powder. We are sorry that the use of McIntyre powder was supported and sanctioned by the Ontario government of the day. We are sorry this happened to people who dedicated their lives and their work to the betterment of our province. Speaker, when I began, I said, today is November 30th. This is an important day in Ontario mining because today, 79 years after the Ontario government sanctioned the first use of McIntyre aluminum powder, I am proud to join with all members of the Legislative Assembly from all parties. And together on November 30th, 2022, an important day in Ontario mining, we offer an apology on behalf of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario to all miners, to mine workers, their friends and their families. We are very truly sorry. Nous sommes vraiment désolés.
We're truly sorry.
Thank you, Speaker.
Responses? Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to thank the Minister of Labour for his statement and apology. And we all need to thank the Minister, the member from Sudbury, for his tireless advocacy to shed light on this tragedy. We've all seen him in this House and in his community advocating for victims, their families, and to educate the public on what happened. So thank you. Today is a new chapter, hopefully one that brings more attention and some closure for victims and families. We also need to thank the volunteers from the McIntyre Powder Project for all their work to educate the public and to document the extensive health issues that affected miners and their families. Mr. Speaker, mining has and always continues to be a critical and noble profession that keeps the wheels of our economy moving. The profession of mining has come a long way, including with safety standards, but it continues to be a dangerous profession. For centuries, men and women have worked in mines, being exposed to various risks to not only put food on the table and support their families, but to support the economy, their province, and the country. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, like we have seen with this case of aluminum powder inhalation, many of the advances in safety we see today have come due to the tragic loss and suffering of people that have come before us. Tens of thousands of miners, and many who did not work in the mining industry, have been exposed to the McIntyre aluminum dust from 1943 to 1980. Many suffered severe health challenges as a result. Men and women going to work, just doing as they were instructed, to inhale this dust, just wanted to put in a good day's work and return to their family safely. They thought they were doing what was right to protect themselves, and that was what they were told if they didn't know. The tragic reality is that we did not do enough to ensure their safety, both in the short term and the long term. I can't imagine the suffering that many families went through. And this apology today is a good step towards positive change to occupational disease or injury. And I wish every success in the government's efforts to improve occupational safety for the workers that make our society prosperous. We need workers, Mr. Speaker, and we need to do everything in our power to ensure that they are safe at work. Every employer's ultimate goal should be to send their employees safe home every day, every night to their families and to their children, that they're able to grow up surrounded by loving, healthy family members who take care of them. I want to say that we will remember all the victims. We thank everyone who's here with us today and those who are not with us. As elected officials, we have a duty We have a duty to put in the work, to do the research, to discern the truth, to explain it to people, and to put the safety of our workers at the top of our priority list before tragedy strikes and not after. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Responses? Point of order, the Minister of Labor.
Mr. Speaker, I think if you seek it, you'll find unanimous consent for a moment of silence for all those who have passed because of the exposure to McIntyre powder.
Minister of Labor is seeking the unanimous consent of the House for a moment's silence in memory of all of those victims who were exposed to McIntyre powder, aluminum powder. Agreed? Agreed. Members will please rise.